Okay, I started the recording. Sorry, I was a little late. Yeah, so you started talking about the bylaws documents.
Yeah, so that bylaws document is where there is clear definitions that we have for trustees, volunteers, community members, and I think there was a number for a guest that is as well. So I linked the bylaws document in the community meetings topic. If we open the document and go about to the middle of the page.
Yeah, I see it. It's starts on page 3 at the bottom. There's it's talking about community area. There will be 5 classes of persons allowed to reside in the community area and access its resources. So
trustees or owners, and then volunteers and community residents, community members, and guests. I guess this hasn't been like a practiced and implemented to the fully with these community residents and members and stuff. But what do you guys think makes sense to go forward with, like the different kind of statuses a person can have in the community?
Maybe maybe we can check Stefan's suggestions regarding that on the document he suggested. He outlines, from what I've read, a suggestion for Fruit Heaven.
Yeah, it says at the minimum, the following must exist, and they can be called differently, of course, like named differently, but so it's 4 that must exist, and it's like applicant, a trial or probationary member, full member, or an exited member.
I think, yeah, go ahead, Boris.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I agree we need to revise these because there's a clear path to becoming a member, like a trial. You know, it's first you kind of apply, maybe even an applicant. I don't know, maybe it's not necessary, but if somebody applies, then they can be accepted. Then they're a trial, and then they become a member. And then also people that have been, let's say, a member, but for whatever reason have been asked to leave or they decided on their own to exit, and they can also be considered exited. So, and also this document with the bylaws, it's only specific to the community area. So I think, yeah, at the top it says FH1, Fruit Haven 1, 26.4 hectares. So it's only specific to that community area. So it's not actually specifying any other community areas or general, membership. Like maybe we should focus on kind of the general membership rather than resident membership for now. That's my thinking.
It does specify, Boris. It specifies for community area and for private lots. So what we have clear so far is we all understand trustees as people that own lots at Fruit Haven. This is everyone's in agreement with that. That is, I think, really well defined. We also have volunteers. The main distinction from volunteers and residents is that volunteers, they have a requirements of doing like about 20 hours per week, and that's in exchange for
how much did you say?
20 hours a week.
20 hours per week. Okay.
Yeah. that is different from community residents, which are basically renters renting guests.
Yes.
So we have those distinctions, and then community member is, I guess, like a privilege title. I guess it's like a formality thing where we grant that title as someone who can kind of participate in decision making for the community area, and they don't have like they have like more autonomy. They don't have to like log in their hours, but they're expected to pay sometimes. So it's like an honorary title that is granted after the person residing at Fruithaven has stayed for about like 6 months or so. And then lastly, the last definition we have is guest. Guest is basically anyone that's invited by members or residents, it says.
Yeah, if I can just
And
quickly jump in, because the community members, it doesn't say anything from what I'm reading about decision making. It just says they're not necessarily trustees and have no legal right to the property solely from their status as a member, but they are respected by trustees as a long-term resident who have interest in maintaining and continuing the food forest and community on the community portion of the land while respecting the collection of private homestead lots. So they have extended an invitation to stay indefinitely, but does not mean permanent. There be problems with the member, their invitation may be terminated and they may be made to leave. So this is, sorry, I wasn't maybe clear earlier. I was saying this is specific to the community area, people that reside in this FH1 community area. It's a good thing to review and to think about, but I think that our focus for membership should not be for people that are maybe present necessarily. So like we should consider like is a membership gonna be just for people that are here, like, or for owners? Like here it says that trustees are known as property owners. Well, I don't even know if trustees, I think we should change that name to just say property owners, because trustees, if you look up the definition, it's like something to do with a corporation or whatever, and we have no corporation.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to put in there like a owner, yes, have these privileges, like a voting rights, for community-wide decisions and stuff, or everything to the deepest level. But also, maybe we should have like a class when an owner has made themselves what you say kind of an outcast in the community, like what happened with Jack, for example, like where he loses his right. So this class of an owner that has lost their rights, have been basically voted out of the community area, voted out of decision making and stuff, for whatever reason. That should be a class also. Otherwise, it's not defined, and otherwise we will not be able to do that, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it's important to define what the members' requirements for them to become a member, obligations they have, rights they have. So I think it's worth start defining those. So in my understanding, what Stefan suggested is like restructuring the whole structure of that. Of course, taking into account past documents, but I think at this point, with such low percentage on his test, maybe that he tested the documents, maybe it's worth restructuring.
Okay, well, what if we maybe try to equate our current definitions to something that is present in the ARCOS, and then maybe adding additional definitions and removing some? Because like these community members, for example, we haven't really had that many of them. I think we had like like a few people that stayed here long term, like a year or so. But then again, you know, like I don't know, maybe Boris, you remember somebody who kind of saw themselves staying here but not necessarily owning anything, just like
Yeah,
residing in the community area.
it's very rare. Yeah. So I think was the question, do you want me to tell you about somebody like that or just
Yeah, like who did we have that like what are the examples of community members we had? If that's an important
one
thing.
that were not owners? Honestly, I don't, in my time, I don't think I know anybody other than somebody who came close to being, but he didn't care. It was, do you remember the guy Tim that lived here?
Yeah.
So yeah, we called him Grumpy Tim. So you can imagine he was good at doing workshop management for a short time, and then when Peter left, he had kind of lost, his motivation. And yeah, like pretty much 1 or 2 months after Peter left, I think, or no, it was a few months. But anyway, he pretty much left. We kind of asked him also to leave at that point because he was just grumpy and it was not helpful. But
Yeah. So that was like the only guy, huh?
yeah, so I think what we should focus here is virtual membership in a way that like we can include maybe even people that aren't owners, but maybe we should focus for now on like taking the owners and saying like, okay, well, Fruit Haven is what is it? It's an idea that we have, it's a website, social media, and then just because people are owning the land doesn't automatically make them a member because well, for example, we know there's people that don't even want to be part of Fruit Haven, whether they own, like at Fruit Haven 3. I could give an example of Terry. She told me, I don't want to be a part of Fruit Haven. So, well, that's okay. Then she can go through a process and say, I'm exiting. I'm an exited member. So I think, yeah, we should look at the document that Stefan linked and decide like do we want I think we should follow this process and yeah it's good to take into account what we have but this is very specific to this it's like 1 hectare this community area is so small and yeah it's an interesting place but well, we should probably focus on the entire but anyway that's my suggestion but let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, it makes sense for the membership because that could also apply to the people that aren't involved. You know, they own shares, but they're not present. They don't participate. They don't answer to anything. So it makes sense that they're not members. And also for the people that want to exit. Um, so what? Like then we only reserve voting and decision making to community members that to community owners that are also members, and then would that also include members in the community that don't own anything? I guess that's irrelevant because we didn't even have anything. So I guess so. An owner must also be a member too.
Right. That's a good question. Maybe we can think in the what was the other topic regarding roles in it. So maybe that's gonna be in a separate thing. Separate.
Also,
My-
I want to say, I want to add something. Like you're talking, like Terry, she doesn't want to be a part of the like a community. She just wants to have her piece of land. I know some people up there, they basically want to kind of get out of the whole community, and you could say, okay, but then they can separate their title for their land or something. First of all, that's very costly, and no one has shown interest in actually paying for that yet, because I don't even know if it's possible, like a small part of a bigger property, like in the middle of it. But it's also like really difficult to kind of administration wise, like okay, so the people who are then exited from the community, so they have no obligation and also no I think that's maybe a lot of it too. They want to be free to be able to do exactly what they want on their land. And of course, when you're in a community, this is not total freedom because you have to respect the the bylaws and your neighbors and stuff. And when it's not a community, you can just not give a shit about that and do exactly what they want. And I guess that's kind of where the attraction to that lies. But where was I going with this? Yeah, the problem is that they did buy into a community, and then they want to leave the community but keep their land that is part of the community.
Yeah.
So that's a bit weird. Like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe they could basically sell and just go somewhere else or make another community that they like. But it's like it goes a bit deeper. It's more involved. It's not just simply, okay, they are no longer part of the community, but they have their land there. Yeah, but how do we divide the payment for the roads, for example?
Absolutely.
No matter what they say and want, they are a part of the community because they have to pay for roads, and the roads have to be maintained, and even the community area has to be maintained because we will have guests coming and people like owners who want to develop and stay at the community area, things like that. And I have seen this trend that as soon as people have moved past the stage where they use the community area, when they are in a place on their property where they can actually stay there and they're not dependent on the community area and the kitchen, the showers and whatnot, then they suddenly don't want to maintain the community area any longer, So it's just this kind of feels like just a selfish thing. They just want to minimize their cost after they have benefited from what the community is, and what it has to offer. So,
if I may add, Rob, sorry, were you finished? I'm not sure if you were finished.
No, what did you say? I couldn't hear.
Sorry, were you finished?
Yeah, I'm pretty much finished. I'm just saying that this about the owners becoming non-members, but they're still owners or exiting and stuff. It is much more involved than just kind of defining, okay, someone doesn't want to be a member anymore, so they can't vote.
I think Nicholas wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say that exactly because of the practical implication Rob's kind of describing. In my understanding, people bought into an eco-village or community, and they cannot act while keeping their lands that they are not part of it, unless they create a new community, like a retitle and put another name or something. But as long as they're part of an eco-village, which they decided to, there are practical implications. So many things to be decided, and budget and costs and shared things and roads and the whole function. So in my opinion, any owner needs to be a member. Otherwise, it will create functional problems. And if they don't want to be a member and they don't want to participate in the eco-village, and they don't like it, maybe they can sell the land and go somewhere else, or rename a title. If there are many owners who don't want to be part of eco-village, they can rename and do their own.
Okay, thank you guys. Sorry, Boris, you okay? I go?
Good.
Yeah, finished.
Okay, so yeah, it is a practical issue because even though they do want to separate, it doesn't kind of finish, I'm going to separate. No, like, yeah, you want to separate, but then you have to take the steps to actually separate. And here's why the separation is actually quite difficult. Over here, the road is, as Rob pointed out, is built and maintained by the community. So an individual lot needs to comply with the zoning of the municipalities, meaning they have to have proper road access and proper water access. So the road and the water needs to comply with the standards, because that is who is going to be maintaining the road, right? If they separate, well, guess what? The city needs to have access to the road to go and maintain it should anything happen, right? It's not up to the community to maintain everybody's road, and then like this people that aren't part of the community are benefiting from it. It doesn't make sense because everyone has to contribute for that. We're paying out of our pockets to pay for that road, not the government. It's not our taxes that are paying for it. It's our budgets that are paying for it. So this is why it's one thing to say, yeah, I want to separate, but it's another thing actually separating, and it's not that easy, and it's going to take a couple of years from what I've seen. First of all, you need to have approval. You need to have environmental or engineer or municipal engineer come inspect it and say, okay, does this meet the standard? And until that is done, they have to comply with the community standard, with the eco-village standards.
Okay, so what I'm hearing basically, at least Nicholas's opinion, is the only way to exit is by selling, and Nick says the only way to exit is by subdividing.
No, they could sell it, or they could separate. But to separate, they need that's like a process that is that has to get approved. Like if you want to separate from the title, you have to meet the criterias.
Okay, so yes, either sell or subdivide, but either way, even if let's say they subdivide, Rob is saying that, yeah, and you said also that there is the communal budgets, and they need to be contributed.
If they subdivide it, that means it would be the city's responsibility to maintain the road, for example, because their private lot has access to the government road, like roads maintained by our taxes. Let's say the bridge breaks, it's up to the city to. Yeah, it would have to become a public road, exactly.
Yeah,
that's a good point, and this is something that everyone will decide, not just one person. So it's actually it might be actually pretty much impossible to separate, to tell you the truth, because
yeah, if all the owners don't agree, then they would have to go through a lawsuit. Peter mentioned that before.
What do you say if like one of the owners don't agree to separation, then it has to be like a lawsuit, or what did you say?
That's right. Yeah, it has to be everybody. Everyone has to sign.
It could also be a majority. It's not it's no longer our consensus decision making method that is applicable. It's more like the what is accepted by the municipality. And they, like, when I went to the registry, they said like a good majority. You need like a large majority to approve the separations.
Actually, maybe Johan has some input on this, because he just went through this, with the guys he bought his land from, Fruithaven 7.
Yeah, I was just gonna fill you in, Robert. So yeah, you have to go right now. I'm going through a lawsuit for because there's 2 for 1 owner, or one of the siblings that doesn't want to sell, they don't want to go through with this. So now, after many years of struggling, we're finally gotten to a point where we can go through with the lawsuit, and it seems like it's possible to do it. It seems confident. So yeah, that's what's my experience. You have to go through a lawsuit to be able to do it, unfortunately.
Could you provide more context, please? I'm not sure what the situation is at all.
Oh, so I bought the land in 2000, 6 years ago, and one of the previous owner had 5 or 6 children, and he died, and then the ownership fell to the children, basically. And the majority of the children wanted to sell, but I think there was 1 or 2 children that didn't want to sell. And then I can't really explain how it worked, but I got to be a co-owner in the land, so I own 50% of the land. And now it's been going through like hearings in the court and everything. Finally, after many years, but now the lawyer is gonna like go through like a lawsuit. I'm not sure how that works, but that's what he told me, that it's gonna have to be a lawsuit. But it seems possible, and it doesn't seem. He says that it could probably have. I could probably have my land in like this year. He says, but maybe it will take like another year. We'll see. So that's the story of Fruithaven 7 at the moment.
Can you get refunded?
I highly doubt it. Like the children, I paid like 6 years ago, but maybe I could. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him, but it seems like it's actually happening, and Fruithaven 7 will be a thing in a short within a short like year or two, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, but isn't it so that you paid for this part that you're now also actually getting? You did not pay for like the whole part, everything.
Yeah. Yes, Robert, you're right. Yeah, I didn't pay. So I paid initially like for the whole land, and then I got the refund for the half of it. Yes, that's
Okay.
That's what happened.
And then these two deeds will be separated into two, so it will be like a smaller deed, and then you're like a free, and it's your completely 100%.
Yes, that's what I understood.
So it will be two titles in Ecuador, two separate titles.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, can I maybe I need to facilitate a little, because we need to focus on what are the membership states that we want to have. So I agree with having the maybe I'll post the link quickly so everyone can just open this up. So I still think that we can do the applicant, trial, probationary, and full member, and an exited member. But I guess we need to think a little bit more about whether owners can exit without selling. So it sounds overall that at least Nicholas, and Rob think that they should not be able to exit, um, which is a little bit problematic considering that it's difficult to sell the land, and there's some people that don't even live on their land that may not want to be a part of it. Now, maybe we need to consider not just exited member, but exited member owner status. So people that don't want to be a part of Fruithaven, that are owners of Fruithaven, they can still participate in some limited, like they can get emails, they can post their land for sale, and they can sell. And then, but they can't, let's say, decide on something. But maybe either we have to somehow find a way to tack on, let's say, their budgets when they sell, or some other way if they don't want to pay. Of course, we want them to pay, but in some circumstances they don't want to pay, or they want to give partial payments, as we know with, for example, Jay. He wants to exit, but he's willing to pay, but he's not really paying in full. So anyway, that's just one example that some of you guys know. So anyway, let me know what your thoughts on how do we proceed with the membership states.
Yeah, it is quite tricky because of the messy situation that we are in now. Yeah.
So why is it messy? Because people that own land can't sell? Is that?
No, it's messy because people are simply no longer committed to what they committed to, and so they don't feel like any obligation to kind of stand by their previous agreements with the community, and so now they want to just exit. But then exiting, like I said, that is a mess too, because even if we can do it legally, they get their title and stuff, that sounds much more easy and kind of nice to them, on the surface, than it actually is. And then we still have to tackle the whole situation with with like a who pays for what, even if they have their own title, you know, like a. And I don't know if it becomes a public road suddenly because we separate the title, because then we should have public roads up there now also, I suppose. But I don't know. But still everything has to be paid for, you know, by everybody together.
Assume that the exit members are gonna be like, we'll assume that they want to sell, because dividing it doesn't seem like realistic. If Carl's been waiting for 6 years and it's still maybe this year, maybe next year, it's obviously not likely that people will subdivide.
Yeah.
So my
And also, I think the subdivision requires a minimum amount of land. If that's not there, I don't think they can make it a title. Like 1 hectare, for example, I don't think can be titled on its own. It needs to be at least a minimum, which in my understanding is about 10 hectares.
Is there such a legal minimum for
Yeah,
dividing?
it depends on the area. Sometimes it's 3 hectares, sometimes it's 1. It depends on what area you fall under. But yeah, let's just assume that people that exited, they should be wanting to sell. Let's say they're owners that are exited and they're just waiting to sell. So if those people, let's say like Terry, don't want to sell or don't want to put it up for sale, then we need to think about what to do. But the most people that are exited, or like in theory exited, let's say, they're probably wanting to sell. Like they don't participate, they want to, you know, they don't want to pay, whatever. Usually they want to sell, right? Like that should be kind of an assumption. We should kind of actually put that in writing. So that's what this committee is for, I guess.
And I think it's important, from what understanding now, we try to structure again things and make them functional and restructure the whole thing. And then it will be an opportunity for them to see this pilot structure, and then they can decide whether they want to be part of that or not. Maybe now they have a lot of they don't want to be because of how things have been done or the structure how they were. But if something new is presented to them, there might be more incentive.
Yes, and also I think, like Boris is saying, like, okay, to move forward with this, and we have to create these kind of membership states, and we assume that if they don't want to be a member, then they will have to sell. But the fact is, they don't want to sell. They just don't want to be part of a community, but they want to keep their land. I think it's, for the most part, it's about them wanting to be free to do exactly what they want, in a way that is kind of not in line with the community or what they bought into. So that's what it's all about. So, like, to me, the way forward that I see is to keep going, set up a structure, and then we will have to rewrite the bylaws in a way that is like a compromise that everybody can agree on, and then we can kind of move forward. But this separating the titles seems very, like, almost impossible, or like a very expensive, at least, and time consuming.
We should assume that they're not going to go with that because it seems so expensive, time consuming, that most people will not do that. They would probably rather sell. So I guess I'll make a copy of this document, and then so I think what we should add is like a non-member owner, and figure out, maybe that'll be in the roles, and role explicitness and operational continuity. Carl was going to say something earlier.
Yeah, like the role registry, you mean?
The other problem is having members not owners that are non-members that aren't participating in community affairs, well, how would they pay for the road? Because there's no problem walking up this road. Like, I don't see any issues with them. But allowing vehicles to pass, that is wear and tear on the road. It leaves, it can damage it, and then it's up to the community to repair it, right? So, like, there needs to be some sort of, responsibilities for these non-member owners that want to sell but are still developing and operating their lots.
Yeah. When it comes to this, selling the lots is very difficult to begin with, and separating the titles much even more difficult. The way it's a bit bummer to talk about all this now when what we actually want to do is kind of decide on the membership states, but also it involves this so much that I guess we have to talk about it, and it's a bit tricky. That's the kind of the mess that I was referring to. That's what I mean by messy. But
I think at the moment, how things are, if my understanding, and I might be wrong because I'm not in Friedhaven, but from my understanding, the situation now is not much functional. All the previous bylaws, the previous structures are not kind of accepted by people, or they don't think about those, and it's like I think in a dysfunctional state right now, and I think that serves the kind of loose or no practical structure serves people who in that mode. But if a new thing is structured and put it in place and starts functioning, allow them to be part of it and start functioning in parallel, and seeing things that being in place, maybe that will motivate them either to participate or sell or do something, because right now how the situation is, maybe it's like in a limbo state.
I think we can put it in the definition. So, for example, we write exited member, exited owner, non-member, and we define that they have to pay a certain. They still have to contribute to roadworks and to the water system maintenance, because water systems are shared and water and roads are shared. So there needs to be like a definition of what are their obligations, because legally they're not separated from the title, but they can't seem to function in the community because the community has a certain vision they don't agree with. So they want to sell, but in the time that they're selling, they're operating and residing on property. So who knows how long that's going to be. So that's why we need to define what are their contributions, what are their obligations for contribution, and per which term, like once a year, like usually that's how it works with the tax, I think. We need to define that and write it out.
yeah, I just wanted to add that Fruithaven like a 1, 2, 4, whatever. I think this is the case, that people who are not active, who don't want to be a part, they want to sell. Actually, they don't want to develop. But for example, at Fruithaven 3, we have people who are there and want to be there, but they don't kind of give a shit about what they agreed to, what kind of community it is, and so now they just want to do whatever. And so to make that work, I guess we would have to kind of set up a structure that they can also see is beneficial, and then also make other bylaws up there to accommodate people. Like we cannot like stop people from changing or evolving or devolving or whatever you want to call it. But we have to try to move forward in a way that is respectful towards everybody. So yeah, it's a bit of a different situation up there.
Maybe with Fruit Heaven 3, if it's such majority of people there don't want to be part of Fruit Heaven or have different vision, maybe, and Fruit Heaven 3, I guess, is a different title altogether. Maybe they can create their own community, their own setting, all the owners there, different name even, and if that's the high majority of owners don't want to be part of Fruit Heaven.
Yeah, that's not the issue. I mean, I think they have already like been talking about different names and stuff. So that's not a problem. Problem is that there are people there also who still subscribe to this idea that we bought into. Like only Kevin is respectful. He's not trying to change the Fruit Haven 3 into something else that fits him, but he understands that he has changed, you know, and he's respecting that as far as I know. But then there are others who just kind of don't give a shit and want to change Fruit Haven 3 instead of, you know, kind of stepping away or whatever.
They're not a majority.
They're not in majority, no. And
Like
so,
a minority, only like two owners.
Even if there were only two owners who like still want to live in the place that they signed up for, like even if it was only one, you know, it running over, like it's like moving into a place, moving into a village, and then taking it over and changing it into something completely different. That's just a violation, you know.
But it's only two owners that want to do that violation.
I'm not sure exactly about the situation now. I mean, when people want to start having farm animals up there, then, you know.
Well, what Nicholas is saying, if it's a majority of people that want to do that, yeah, you have this way forward. But if it's like a minority or like one or two owners, well, I think that probably requires a different solution.
Yeah, so that would be them selling and moving away. But if they don't accept that, if we want to have like a functioning community and not just kind of fighting over it, and then we need to find, you know, a cooperative way forward. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. These membership states and just saying, okay, someone who don't want to be a member anymore, then they are kind of out of the decision making. Yeah, fine, but we still have to finance things, and they're still using the water, you know, and whatnot. So, and they still benefit a lot. Like the fact that the road was built as a community area was there, and they were living there themselves while they were developing their own lands and getting that in order. You know, it speaks to the fact that we also need the community area, you know, for future development.
So my understanding, we can have a state of a member, like non-member that is an owner, but they're still obligated to contribute. So now, how can we, you know, have them contribute? Maybe that's a discussion for another day or whatever. But maybe we can come to an agreement, like between whoever's here on this call. That do we agree with having these states basically? So if you can see, I put my screen I'm sharing. Hopefully it's big enough.
Yeah,
So,
I saw you put the link, so we can actually open the document also and see.
That's right.
See it. So
yeah. So yeah, let me know if that makes sense. Like someone applies, they're an applicant, then they're a trial member, there's a trial period, and then they become a full member. Those just basically the states, not how to get to those states, not how we get them to pay or whatever. I think that's kind of what we should focus, because yeah, we have limited time today, and then just like we'll see what we could do next meeting.
Yeah, look, it's good. We go with these states. We define the member states. This is the direction we're moving on as a community. So if we give this proposal with these roles that are defined, with these member states that are defined, the people still have a choice to participate in it or not. But if they choose not to participate, their role is defined by us, and they still have obligations. So they can either choose to go into direction where they're non-member, but they have these clear expectations from us as a community, or they join in with our proposal. And I mean, like, I don't see a problem with that. But then, should they choose to completely non-comply, then like we can have a state like that as well, non-compliant member, and non-compliant members will have um, like a definition, like restrictions, for example. It's like essentially like a banned member.
But please, let's call that owner, because that's what it really is, like a non-member owner. So then it would be like a non-compliant owner, kind of, or something.
Well, non-member owner still has responsibilities, but
Yes.
then a non-compliant owner is the
Exactly.
one that is refusing completely to communicate, is absent from everything, is non-responsive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's just what I was referring to. Like don't call it non-compliant member, but a non-compliant owner. Yeah.
Not sure how important is the trial member, because from my understanding so far in Fruithaven, someone applies to buy land and then they either accept it or not, and then they buy land. So that doesn't that automatically give them full membership?
Yeah, that's the
Yes.
problem as it is now. We should have had this. It should have all been organized as an SAS or something from the beginning, where we can actually kind of kick people out and have their ownership membership revoked and just kind of forcibly sell their share. But we can't do that as it is set up now.
Yes. So maybe going forward, we can have a trial period where we're going to think about, what sort of trial we're going to have, and think about the application to, like, are we happy with that form and everything. So for now, maybe let's see. So we agree, I think, that a non-member owner seems to make sense. I don't know, like it has optional things like visiting member. I don't really think that fits. So do you guys agree to remove that? Those are the optional ones anyway, like inactive member, suspended member, maybe suspended member, but there's already an exited member, so I'm kind of not sure if we need a maybe a suspended is temporary. I don't know. That's my question. I don't know if we need all of these or we can just keep it, for example, the applicant, trial, full, exited, and then non-member owner.
We
Yeah,
need member, because suspended member is someone that is non-compliant and is not is not contributing at all. It's like non-responsive, non-compliant. That's a suspended member. An exited member is someone that chose not to participate but is still contributing like the minimum for shared systems.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that the exited members, like they exit at their own choice, and suspended is someone that was like exited by us in a way, like.
Or themselves, they might have been completely absent, completely non-responsive, completely just like, like let's say Terry, she doesn't want to communicate, doesn't want to, like, she left the group, like, and like if you send her like a notice, she'll be like, no, I don't care about that. Or like Jack, like non-responsive, not there.
Well, that could also become an inactive member if somebody's just non-responsive. Like, what was it, Will Todd, or some people at FH3? I heard they're just not responding much or at all.
I think from understanding the four main members that are important right now from all these titles is that means something is applicant, it's just someone applying to buy land, then full member, then exited member is the one that doesn't want to be but still contributes what the community wants, like water, road, or something. And then the fourth one, a non-compliant owner or a non-compliant exited member. So kind of four I think are the main categories.
Okay.
Are you seeing the document now, Nico?
Yes. So
Maybe I just
I'm
heard-
saying
Yeah.
applicant, full member, exited member, and non-member owner, like for or non-compliance owner.
Yeah, but those are two really different, I think. The non-member owner, but this is the non-member owner is still very hypothetical. You know, it doesn't. You know, we don't have a road to even get there now, but it seems some people want to get there, so that's why we're kind of including it.
Okay, so we may not even necessarily need the non-member owner if they're just an exited member that happened to be an owner. So maybe that's kind of the.
Yeah,
Where
but
do we put? Go ahead. Sorry.
I think an exited member is simply someone who has sold and like exited, or who never owned but was like a member in the community and lived there and stuff, and then they exited. So it's just to have a registry also, I think, of people who was there but is no longer.
Yeah.
So,
Where do we put the volunteers also? Volunteers and guests. Where do those guys go?
they might not be interested in becoming members, so maybe they're just a separate thing altogether.
I think it's worth first agreeing or not whether there could be members who are not owners. Like, can someone be a member who is not owner? So that's, I think that needs to be established first.
That was the case before. Like the idea from the beginning was that people could come and live there and even, you know, build a small cabin or something on community land and you know, live there as a member without owning land. But then, of course, nobody wants to do that because anybody who's crazy enough to go to the tropics and get into the jungle and start building, they want to have some security in that. They want to feel like they own their little land and cannot be just kicked out or, you know, something like that.
Well,
So
actually, it did happen at Terra Frutis where somebody built on communal land, and I remember Peter saying that they won't do that anymore. He was, I don't know exactly the details. Maybe Nicholas, Charlotte, or whoever might fill us in. But my understanding is it was, yeah. If you read the document of the bylaws, it doesn't give a member of the community anything like different, not much different than the resident. Basically, it still allows them to get kicked out, and they still have to, yeah, like do volunteer work. So it wasn't really a whole lot different.
I think in
yeah,
Evo they had that as well.
what did you say, Nick?
I think there was a dude that made a house at the Evolution Eco Village without being an owner.
Many people build houses there without being owners.
Yes, yes, that's what happened in Evolution. About Terra Fruitis, as far as I know, yeah, they stopped doing that. They did stop kind of doing that, or yeah, they only did with that person, which no longer there, I think now. And yeah, it's no longer that happening. Then they started selling lands, and he was more promoting buying lots.
But anyway, I think what the point is that if there's somebody visiting, if they're just renting, checking places out, if they didn't apply, let's say with the trustee questionnaire, then they're not even on this, I think we can keep it separate. They're not even on this path. Like they don't want to become an applicant or a child, so it's fine. They can visit, they can rent, they maybe that'll be a separate document that'll be more specific, like what guests slash volunteers. I think the way that we do now is we kind of lump them in as the same thing, because it's just like, well, you want to volunteer, it's voluntary. You do some work. If you don't, it's okay, whatever.
Yeah, maybe I agree with you, Boris. Maybe this does not have to be decided now. Like a visitor, guest, resident, volunteer, that's different from being a member anyways. Yeah.
Basically, we probably don't like talking about, the founder, Peter, or whatever, but he had good ideas about where he is now. It's like a private membership association. So maybe what we take the similar step and become like that, where it's like you first have to become an applicant and a member and a full member before you are even allowed to buy land. So you have to be a full member before you're buying land. So right now we have, let's say, whatever, 40 owners. So I guess we have to assume that everyone's at this stage, at the full member stage, but and then we'll give them a chance to exit or something. But if they want to sell, or maybe if they don't respond, they become suspended after like a certain, we'll think about how many attempts of communication and all that stuff that we have with them. Or maybe inactive. Do we need this, or just remove it and make them suspended or exited? I think that's kind of enough.
I think, yeah, you don't need an active. Suspended could be inactive, same thing.
The thing is, an inactive member is still a full member. If they decide to join, then they can just vote, in important matters and whatnot. But they are not doing that now. So they are still a full member. We just don't have to define them as inactive here in the States membership, right?
So we don't need that state, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that makes sense. Now, with this one, I don't know yet. Do we even? Yeah, okay, we'll think about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have no path to get there at this point, right? So.
Another question, yeah, Nicholas had, like, should we consider having, I guess, if this is the way that we go with membership before owners, then we would have members that are not owners. I'm okay with that. I think that's a good idea. And that could be a
Yeah.
way to raise money, because to become a member, maybe you need to pay some, I don't know, $20, $30, something like that, some small fee.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we think whether people can be members or not if not having land. Like maybe that's important to be decided.
Yeah.
I think we should do it. I mean, this is just a proposal, obviously. The idea would be then, yeah, okay, let me know what your thoughts are.
May I just say something? This deciding the membership states, it involves so much more that I think, we might want to put some more time into this, a few more meetings, and kind of digest it ourselves between the meetings, and without the expectation that we have this completely done by Thursday.
Yeah, that's a good idea. There's no rush. I'm just thinking to focus on these thoughts. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I know for myself, it takes time to kind of see something, to think about it, to have this dialogue inside my head, and to sleep on it a couple of nights, and digest it, and then hear more input and other opinions and perspectives, and this is the way it takes time to form a, a truly well thought out and intelligent kind of opinion or idea about this.
Yeah, totally. Any thoughts, Nick?
Look, this is good. It's been an hour. We talked about, we touched on the different issues that we're experiencing, and we saw what our current member states are in our documentation. Okay, we saw the definition of those, and we looked at the new stuff that is proposed by Arcos, and we kind of try to apply those to what we currently have, and then come up with some new stuff as well. Like, I mean, I think this is good progress. As Rob said, we can kind of sleep on it, but it was good so far. For today, I'm happy with what we have.
Yeah, I
Yes,
don't
yes.
remember. One question for Nick. I didn't hear if do you think we should have this basically membership that aren't owners?
Members that aren't owners, it might be a good idea to offer that pathway to people that come stay at the community. Let's say they come as volunteers, and they stay like 6 months. Look, I had a volunteer that stayed here 6 months. She was considering staying another 6 months. So like, at first, the way it was is, the expected hours were logged and everything was good, but then, like, after a while, as the person settled in, they became more comfortable, and their kind of work was not necessarily to be logging in. They were just kind of like actively participating in all kinds of projects. So I mean, by that point, I think the member state can evolve, and it's good to offer that pathway. And like, the way we had it written before is that that community member can participate in decision making, can give recommendations. So I do like to offer an honorary member state like this, and as long as we're in agreement that, like, it's the owners that are making these financial decisions, unless of course they want to contribute financially. In that case, that's a different story.
Okay, so what I was thinking, possibly, this is just an idea, like I mentioned with this PMA, Private Membership Association. What we could have the path to ownership become is kind of like, maybe there's even another option between the trial. So let's say the trial member is somebody that applied and was like past this stage, becomes a full or a trial member, and then after 6 months, let's say residency, then if accepted by the members, they can become a full member, and then maybe they will become sort of like a member owner state, which is what we have sort of now. Whereas, yeah, like they're a member and an owner. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For for the sake of order, is it okay to put the exited member at the bottom of the list? Like, they are gone, but they are still registered as an exited member, because for kind of documentation purposes, basically.
Yeah.
They will remain in the registry.
I would like there to be like, an owner. Sorry, a person can buy into the community, become a non-member owner that still has certain, like, budgetary responsibilities, and then after a trial period they become a voting member. For that, I think that would make sense. I don't necessarily like the idea of only selling to members, because that sort of restricts investment from the outside, because, like, some
Can I just
people want to buy in but not necessarily be participating in community matters. They just want kind of invest, so I do want to be open to that.
Yeah, on that, I also wanted to say, like, this looks good, like, you become a trial member, and then you can, become a full member, and then you can buy a share. But the fact is, basically, none of us would be owners if that was the only path, if we could not buy from a distance, without having lived there for 1 year, or even 6 months, or even 1 month.
Well,
So
I lived here before buying. I think I might be the exception.
yeah, I think you are the unique exception, probably, more or less. So what
Well,
I'm saying is that also people who want to sell their share at this point, they will never agree to this, because this means that they will never be able to sell their shares, because this process makes it basically impossible,
well, okay, yeah, maybe it's harder here, but we visited a place in Vilcabamba where this is their rules, and they have, I think, 4 families, and they have more children than adults. So maybe it's different because it's Vilcabamba, but it seems to be working for them there. They said 6 months of residency before you're a member, and the rent is actually pretty expensive. We didn't even want to rent with them. They're not vegan either, but anyway. But just to give an idea that just because it sounds difficult, it might not be necessarily impossible. Like our rent is pretty cheap usually, so it might be an option.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong from that perspective. I'm just saying that the way our community is, it has like a much smaller kind of target group also, like in the world population, and it's difficult as it is to to find people who want to come and buy land, and if they have to live there for 6 months or a year, it just won't happen. And that's why I'm saying that people who now want to sell shares, eh, they will be like they will throw their hands up and not agree to this, or just kind of give up on the whole thing, because they will feel like they will never be able to sell their shares.
Okay, yeah,
But
I understand what you mean. But they can still sell it and become again non-member owner, which is what Nick said. So this path, I guess
yeah,
it's good that it doesn't have numbers because it means you can become a non-member owner from a distance, but then if you want to become a member, you have to go through this process, let's say. So maybe this is a kind of separate process, maybe potentially, and these are separate states. So
yeah,
it's like to become, well, maybe we don't necessarily, anyway. So, but one thing also we could do, we don't have to do a residency. Maybe it's a mix of a trial period that can include like some residency or not.
yeah,
It just maybe time since they applied, for example. But anyway, we could think about that more.
yeah, because I mean, a lot of us are, okay, I have not been so much lately, but for some reasons, but a lot of us are trying to participate in the community, even if we are at a distance, so anybody could do that.
Yeah, virtual participation counts towards being a member. Absolutely.
Yeah. But on these matters, like this with converting to an SAS, this we should really look into, because that would make everything so much easier. It will be easier for people to sell their shares, to buy shares, and it will be easier for the community to maintain some kind of control when it comes to rogue owners, like Jack, for example, and things like that. So if we can get to this SAS kind of organization and ownership of the land, where we can simply buy and sell shares without involving titles or the lawyers or whatever, that would
Yeah, that's
yeah,
actually interesting. I can speak a little bit on that because so two things. One again with Peter, he's doing that in the U.S., and then another again the place that we visited, same place in Vilcabamba, and they have that system where it's an SAS. Um, Now, generally speaking, it's not super cheap, and it will reduce the fees maybe in the long term, but not so much in the short term because it takes quite a bit of paperwork of administering it and having it and everything. And yeah, it turns into a little bit different, I guess. Yeah, we have to think about it. And yeah, go ahead. I think Nicholas wanted to say something.
I'm just concerned with this. SIS is a great structure, but kind of maybe implemented from the start. Now I don't see how it can be formed if not all owners agree on it, on the title. Like all the tenants in residence need to agree, I guess, for that to become an SAS.
That's true. You need to agree.
Yeah, well, the carrot in that case would be that it would be much easier to sell their shares if it is an SAS, right? And cheaper for the buyer.
I think Nick looked into the details also, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you do make it as SAS, you know, the definition of what the person owns is important, because even
Yeah.
an SAS owner still needs to be Ecuadorian to be able to buy or sell anything to in this region here. So if we do make an SAS, I would only see it worth like to be worth it if we can define kind of, or not define, come up with what are we selling exactly. So for example, do you know, Boris, in Vilcabamba, were they selling timeshares or were they selling user rights? What were they selling exactly to become member of that community?
Well, I think they don't have that problem because they're not within whatever it was 40 was a kilometer from the border or something like that. So I think they can actually be foreigners that own the land there, as far as I know. So I think they did have percentage shares, and and the percentage, and yeah, they had something we didn't really like the idea. That's maybe that's specific to them, but for example, you could it's a kind of communal space and they have various houses and you could pay to build a house, but that becomes an asset of the community. So everything kind of goes to that SAS, and they said that everyone has equal voting power even if it's different percentage or something like that.
So you could buy, you can kind of have actions, like you can have shares of the land, like you have here.
Yeah, I think it's percentage. Yeah, it wasn't totally clear what how it was working there.
Okay. Well, I mean, it would be, maybe we need a whole other work group on that, but to figure out how, like, what can we be marketing here? Because the way it is right now, if we market selling the titles, um, you know, we need that special permit from the military, and there's a, you know, like there's a pretty big markup on that. There's a, it's like at least $2,000,
Wow.
and there's no guarantee. And and if you want guarantee, it's $4,000. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of figure out, like, what do we do? Do we go with what we had and we just like up the closing costs, or do we sell timeshares or user rights?
Good questions.
Yeah, so if I
Maybe
understand correctly, even if we convert to SAS, we still need the same like approval from the military and stuff to sell shares in that SAS.
Yeah, like, let's say if the owners are non-Ecuadorians, yeah, you need approval. So there might be some kind of workaround where the members are not owners of the land shares. It's like the land shares are all in, like, you know, an Ecuadorian owner, like an Ecuadorian's name. You know, like, let's say Boris's daughter, for example, or like a friend or whoever, like you, or a trustee. You know, you put it onto a trustee's name, and then we do like a private contract with the trustee. You know, that's just one of the ideas. You know, like I'm saying it, but there's like so many things I don't like in it. You know, and there might be other ways of doing it.
Can
maybe
it be
could
like
a
a
more
legal person? Can it be like a legal person, like a company, or does it has to be like a human person?
The, like, you mean like a public company?
not a public like a traded company, but a company like a
Well, if it's private company, the owner has to be Ecuadorian. If it's public company, then it's a Ecuadorian entity.
yeah. This is
Could be
something
a-
that one would have to ask some good lawyer about all these things also.
Well, each
yeah, I
one
was
of them
gonna
says
say-
different things. There's a lot of lawyers, and they have like different approaches. Like this is there's lawyers to talk to and individual research as well.
What if you put it on the name of a lawyer and then the lawyer owns it and you're operating it or something? But it's probably not a good idea that way.
No, but that's basically how they do it in Thailand, for example. So my dad, he owned a house there, and it was like these building projects where it's like a big kind of community, and it's like a Thai lawyer and business that is owning the land, and you buy shares into this, and that basically means that you buy the borders of your little lot, and you buy the house that sit on it, but you're not actually owning the land. And that's how they get around it in Thailand.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have you do it with the lawyer, and you have a legal contract. So, for example, it would be like a promise of sale. The guy and the guy grants you user rights, indefinite user rights, and indefinite access, and like everything that they have, in exchange for the payment. And it's like essentially what the guarantee is that that contract that you have between you and the lawyer.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know, maybe that is a way to go if it's possible in Ecuador.
Yeah, of course, it is possible, but it's just the people that when they're buying, it's going to be, it's clearly written like, oh, well, you essentially, like, you don't have the name and the title, you have user rights, indefinite user rights, and so on until you become Ecuadorian, for example. Like that could be defined.
Yeah, but even then you would not get the name on the title because it still has to be, like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We have to look at this because
No, you get it. Once you become Ecuadorian, you get it.
yeah, but that was the question. Do we want that, or do we want an SAS where we can actually buy and sell shares, more easily with just a simple contract between people and the entity, like owning the land, this lawyer or something, because we also want to maintain some kind of control. We want to also safeguard against incidents like we had with Jack, for example. And now the land is sitting there and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? There might be structures like nonprofit structures, or nonprofit, or like some sort of like special interest company. There's different corporate and nonprofit type of structures that we can utilize. Like SAS is just one of them, but there is, like, let's say, a special interest company that has different definitions, and we can even with those we can even assign restrictions. For example, like, not protect the forest from like exploitation or from concessions or from like pasture. Like, let's say somebody decide to cut down the forest and like start a cattle pasture. We can put restrictions with specific property titles.
Yeah. So that would then become enforceable bylaws, basically, compared to the non-enforceable bylaws that we have had now.
Yeah, exactly. It's possible to put restrictions on land titles. For example, there's this thing in the UK. It's called the Vegan Land Movement, and that's what they do. They're a special interest company that buys back agriculture land and turns it into wildlife reserves. And the way the title is registered, it has these specific restrictions on what can be done with the land. And I think even there's another guy in the States that made Fortnite. He does that too. He just buys like forests and like makes them wildlife reserves.
Yeah, this is interesting for sure. And not just from my perspective, someone who wants to preserve the community and protect it against violations, of the bylaws and stuff, but also for everybody who is interested in buying or selling shares, because we want to make that possible and without like these troubles. And of course we will put in these these restrictions that kind of production and like a commercial production of drugs is absolutely prohibited, for example. So but because that's a lot of the issues that they have. That's why we need permission to buy or sell, because they are afraid that people will come in and buy land and then it will be used for like coca production or something.
Right. If we can maybe finish up on the member states, I think we're good with the selection of the categories. I think what we still need is maybe definitions for each category. So what I see here, trial member, 6 months of trial period, and then in parentheses include residency for 3 months. So yeah, like so let's say it's 6 months like online participation, and then I guess 3 months is so we can kind of see how they are in person.
Yeah, but it's difficult
but-
for some. For example, for someone like me, now at this point, I'm still working to be able to afford start building there, and we're hoping to go there after the summer of 27. But like it would be impossible for me to go for 3 months and stay there, for example.
Doesn't have to be. First of all, it's just a suggestion that I came up with. I just put it there. That's one thing. The second thing, we could change that and like make it 1 month or make it like non-consecutive. Like say you visited 1 month this year, 1 month the next year, whatever. So after a couple years, you become a full member. That's kind of how the residency. It takes years to become a resident here now. So that's just an idea that you can still be a non-member owner, for instance, but then still in the trial period for the membership or something. But those are just ideas. We can change them. We can work group them, think about them, sleep about it.
I think
Yeah.
3 months is overkill. What is the minimum that's needed? I mean, I think 1 month, residency in like in person sort of interaction. I think that's fair, no?
Well, I'm thinking the reason I said it is basically one thing is like these other communities, they generally take 6 months. And then if you think about, I guess we'll bring up the Jack situation. We didn't know he stayed 1 month. We didn't know anything until he started living there for like 2, 3 months. Then things came up. So it took some time to see the person's true colors, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
So what you're saying now is that someone can only buy land if they have gone through a trial member and resided also for I guess 3 months.
Not necessarily.
They are able to buy land.
No,
Not
no, no.
necessarily, because you could still be a non-member owner, because those are like in dots. So you could either be a full member, non-member, suspended, and then so you could still be an owner. Because right now we potentially could have a lot of non-member owners, and then maybe we're not going to require every single one to do the full trial and stuff. But I don't know. We'll think about it in the future, I guess.
But maybe we have
So
non-members.
I guess then the non-member owners then they won't have any voting rights and any decision making until so some people can buy land but not be involved in decisions or voting unless they went through a trial.
Yeah,
think that
I
makes sense.
don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea. Then we will just get more people who are not aligned at all with the community, but that are owning land, and that problem is going to kind of expand.
Yeah, but I guess we're already stuck. I think we have maybe close to half of the owners that are trying to sell, and they've been trying to sell for maybe a year or 2 years or 3 years. I don't know how long now.
Yeah, but that's also why I am really interested in finding a way forward, maybe changing the organization of this or the ownership, how that's organized to make it easier to buy and sell shares, but also make it easier to kind of control who gets to buy shares, you know, by control in the community. And also if we need to kick someone out, you know, for violations of whatever, then that also will be possible, you know.
Right.
But so that's why I think it will be vital to make it easier to buy and sell shares, because at this point it's basically impossible.
An idea that Jay was saying is that like the SAS, every SAS that you make, it would cost more kind of money. So he said like to save money, all the fruit havens, let's say 1, 2, and 3, could all be owned by one SAS, and then we kind of unite everything. And then, but of course, again, this probably needs all the owners to actually agree to this. So if someone doesn't agree, maybe we have to kind of draw the map around them. That's one option.
Yeah.
A lot of advantages and disadvantages to the SAS as well. People mostly didn't want to do it when Peter was proposing it.
I think people didn't really understand it, or they were having their eyes on having their own title of those that were there, you know, like the people up at FH3, for example, uh, because they want their own title, their own name on their own title of their small little piece of land. But that's, of course, we know now that's going to be really expensive and really difficult and take many years, probably.
Yeah, it might make it harder for people at FH3 to do. It might be easier for people by the river because there's a specific ordinance like to the restriction, the size of land and stuff like that.
Okay.
Either way, it's a difficult and long and expensive thing. So yeah, so we should think either we convert to SAS or we think about how to have like non-member owners. Like we could still say, okay, well, let's say there's 40 owners, but maybe only 10 of them are actually Fruit Haven members, right? But that might be okay, you know, like that's kind of where we're at now, and that
Yeah.
might be okay. I don't know, like
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about also, that we have to find a way forward where we make like agreements and contracts and kind of bylaws that we compromise, or we you know, leave people out of certain, you know, obligations and rights also. But yeah, this has to be organized then so that it's actually fair for everybody, and people can't just kind of get away from paying by by exiting the Fruit Haven community, and then they are still benefiting from the community, you know.
that's for sure. The maintenance budgets, that's kind of a separate thing. They should still be obligated to pay if they're an owner.
Yeah.
Go about doing it. Not totally sure yet, but we can think about it. But yeah, think about these options, I guess, and see if you resonate with them, and if you think it should be any different. We can come back to it. When should we do the next? Just next Thursday, I guess, would be good.
Yeah, I could imagine us having another meeting on Tuesday, you know. We get to think on this a couple of days, and yeah.
Kim,
What about the other meeting for the roles?
Yeah.
maybe that will be the Tuesday then.
I guess, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good about this now. The applicant, trial member, full member owner, and non-member owner, like an owner that has now exited kind of the community, and a suspended member, like someone who is basically kicked out or non-compliant, and then exited like an old member, you know. sold or left, or yeah. This looks pretty good to me now. So like on Tuesday we could move on to this role stuff, and then we have had time to digest this membership states also, and we can take it from there.
Sounds good to me.
All right, 7 o'clock Tuesday.
So like today?
You mean?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
so 7 o'clock my time, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Works.
All right.
Also, if I'm able at that time, if you want me, guys, I can participate too on Tuesday if I'm available.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Yeah. All right, everybody. You have a nice day. I'm gonna go to bed now. Get up early tomorrow morning. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for joining, everybody. I'll send the recording.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I think, yeah, this is looking good so far, I think. Take care.
Thanks. Peace.
Cheers. Ciao.